Welcome to the Eclectic Gamers Podcast. Today is Sunday, November 24th. This is episode 233. I'm Tony.
I'm Dennis. And special thank you to Glenn W., who emailed us his remix of the Laser War music in honor of our last episode's discussion on what games could Stern remaster.
Laser War!
We thought, and I had mentioned Laser War, so in honor of that, I thought I'd put a little bit of that in here at the start of the episode. Also, before asking you what you've been doing, I do have a few corrections. Some of these are actually a couple of episodes ago that I meant to talk about, but last time we had a OneNote issue. We almost had another OneNote issue.
Yeah.
But last time we had a OneNote issue on my part, so I did not end up getting them in. But Rare Hero on Pinside issued a correction regarding episode 231. In that episode, I said that Elvira Blood Red Kiss was a premium run. It was not a premium run. That was a limited edition run that they added on later of 500 units, and that's why people were so pissed off about Elvira in particular.
Makes sense.
So that is corrected. And then Corey W. emailed in a correction to our last episode, 232, which a correction on me yet again. I was talking about American Pinball, and I mentioned Riot not making the numbers of doing Legends of Valhalla on their own, so they ended up contracting with American Pinball. That is not the right game. It was Riot in both instances. However, Riot had first created Wrath of Olympus. That was the game they tried to sell 100 of in order to go into production. And so later they had a new game, Legends of Valhalla. You see, the mythological tie-ins confused me, but they are both by Riot Pinball. But it was the pre-order count on Wrath of Olympus that they failed to hit, and thus the game was never mass-produced. A third thing, before asking you what's been going on, is I just want to go ahead and note on our Pinside thread, Treybo69 wrote in and said, this is regarding a TV show discussion we had. The Yakuza show was disappointing. It played too straight without the goofy fun. It's certainly not bad, just super forgettable. So unfortunately, it is not like the games. It's not silly.
That's the thing, that it had to be goofy.
It had to.
It had to be goofy.
It had to. And so they didn't do that. But what they did do is want to know what's been going on, Tony.
Well,
so, tell us.
I had a bit of, I'm going to call it a lucky tree fall.
Lucky tree fall. Okay.
We've had a couple trees in our backyard along our fence line that were attacked by some sort of beetle, and it killed them this summer.
Yes, murder beetles.
So, but I hadn't gotten around to taking one of them down, and we had a lot of sustained high winds earlier this week.
Yes.
And it took it down. But I've been storing the stick truck in the backyard.
Oh.
Just behind the gate, the double gate that lets me drive in and out of the backyard. And the tree came down on the stick truck. Luckily, it came down on the bed of the stick truck.
Oh.
It was already beat to heck and didn't really do any major damage. But when it came down, it shattered, so I was able to cut it up against the truck and then just drop it in the bed to haul it off.
So it's ready to go. So it's basically preloaded.
Preloaded.
Yes.
About half of it was preloaded into the bed, so I was able to, and then cut the rest up and put it in the bed and haul it off to the thing. But it didn't.
That is pretty lucky.
Yeah. It didn't smash anything. It didn't break anything. It scratched up the paint that's already so in such bad shape that honestly it was hard to tell what was a new scratch or what was an old scratch. And there were a couple more dents than there used to be. So that was kind of a lucky run.
Yay.
Other than that, I finished What of Dungeon Crawler Carl is out.
That's the audiobook you've been listening to?
That's the audiobook I've been listening to.
The one where you just circle around my house instead of coming and finishing the podcast because you're like, oh, I got to get through this fight.
Yeah, that one. And I talked about it some on the Discord, but it's definitely, I had some issues after I finished it as I started listening to the next audiobook in my list because I'm just sitting there going, this book is so bad compared to what I just listened to. I was like, the narration's fine. It's got a good narrator. The story's probably okay if forgettable. It was one I'd gotten for free during a sale. And I was just like, I got to change to something else.
It's hard.
It's
hard.
It is too far below what I just finished. So, and I don't want anything huge and long because the next Stormlight Archive book comes out on the 6th.
Yes, and that's a really long one, if I recall.
Yeah, it's 65 hours. So, Unfortunately, it comes out the day after I get back from my work trip.
Oh, that would have been good for your work trip. Yeah.
I would have been perfect for the work trip. But yeah, I get back on the 5th and it comes out on the 6th. It's like, come on. Bad luck.
Yeah.
Bad luck. So that's basically it, because my video gaming has not changed. I've just basically been playing Satisfactory.
I wouldn't know anything about that since you and Travis Murray continue to incessantly talk about it in a messenger chat that I happen to be a third wheel in.
Valid. We should probably create a different chat that removes you from it.
Just like
to
sharing
be fair,
pictures.
You got your
I'm rebuilding the factory, guys.
To be fair, you got your revenge.
Did I?
You did.
Okay.
You did.
Good.
There's definitely been a lot of chat on a mobile game. On a completely different.
I didn't add you to that. That's all right. So yes. So I guess what a good transition. That's my sister's fault primarily. So Dungeon Clawer is a
when it initially came out, because my head has been stuck on the whole dungeon crawler. I saw it. I'm like, that's that claw game thing that had come back that we talked about earlier. Yeah.
Yeah. So my sister really wanted us to play Dungeon Clawer. And she messaged when it came out on Steam and mobile as a final release. And so I have played it. I haven't won it yet. It's 20 floors in the base game. I've gotten to floor 19. I got to floor 19 my first game because I am a pro at this sort of stuff. But she's like, have you ever seen those movies where people are a professional gambler for their living? That was kind of how she was back in the day with the claw machines. Like going in, like all the pinball people are cringing right now because like claw machines have taken away all the pinball machines and everything's just kiddie gambling. It's like, yeah, well, she would go in and she'd be like, she'd look at the layout and the configuration of the claw machines and figure which ones were vulnerable or ready to do a big payout and go in. So this plays up her alley. But yeah, they're different characters and they have different, kind of like any other roguelike. They have different styles and the pathing is a little different as you go along in terms of what you can do. So I've played 4 characters, I think, so far. I got to floor 19 out of 20 twice with 2 different styles. So I haven't gone through all the character types yet, but that's what I'm doing right now is giving them each a test because do I like their kit? Do I hate it? It's different. So, yeah, I don't know if it's a Tony-style game, though. I mean, you like dungeons.
Yeah.
But claws are a much more delicate subject. But speaking of delicate, I just yesterday finished Final Fantasy IV. The game.
That's the first time for you.
The first time. This is the third time on a third system I have started this game. I finally won it. And just like
congratulations.
The other 3, thank you. It had like a 10-minute ending. And just like the other 3 pixel remasters, I got to the final boss, couldn't beat him. And this one was extra frustrating because there's a whole setup where you have to watch 2 other characters that you do not control fight his first form. Then his second form appears, wipes out your group. They fight him, the 2 non-controllable characters, fight him again, lose. Then back on Earth, the people have to like pray for you. And then you get revived.
Give me your
and restored.
energy.
Yes, and it's all in but it's in little stages. It's like a 5-minute thing. So you wipe out and you have to go through that again. There's no way to save in between. So even with the Pixel Remaster, there's no opportunity to quick save or anything. So it was just like, I'm losing. So I load up guides, and I'm like, all right, I was pretty much doing mostly what it was saying. It gave me a few other suggestions, but I was pretty much doing the right thing. And then it was like, same thing with all the other Final Fantasies. Okay, Dennis, go and grind. So I added like another 10 levels on the characters and then I beat it first try. It was like 8. I added like 8 levels to the main character and I got him high enough. So, cause I was getting one shot by one of the spells. At least some of the characters were. So I just needed a few more levels. I was very close, but I just needed a little more hit points. And so I got it. I've not started Final Fantasy. Now, 5 and 6 are the last of the Pixel remasters. I have won those games before.
Right.
So everything that I've done so far had been games that I'd played 1 and 4 before, but I'd never won them. And 2 and 3 were Japan only originally. I'd never played them. So now I haven't decided if I'm going to like jump to Callisto Protocol, which is a game I got for my birthday. There's a Black Friday sale going on right now. So I don't know about Satisfactory because I don't want to fall down the rabbit hole of building factories.
We could start a multiplayer factory.
I'm scared.
Just take the multiplayer map.
I already started Dungeon Clawer. And now, and Alan Wake 2 is on sale for Black Friday. I'm thinking about buying it.
But
So-
we could put together a thing and start a group
I
satisfactory
won't follow it.
factory.
This is like MMOs. This is getting bad. Don't make me do it.
But
Don't make me do it.
you can do fun things, and
No, I don't
you
believe it.
definitely don't completely redesign your factory because
Yeah,
you need to build a new factory. And
Yes,
you're
I
just
would
staring
never
at the map, and you're like, "Man, I don't want to start a new factory. I'm going to completely tear this old one apart and rebuild it, doing the exact same stuff that it was already doing, but it looks prettier now."
Yes, it's all about aesthetics. It's very sad. Well, speaking of sad, let's jump into pinball. It's not all sad.
I was going to say, I don't think pinball's sad, is it?
Well, I have to open with a quasi correction. It is a correction, but I'm calling it quasi because it wasn't really our fault. So last episode, I said that American Pinball had finally discontinued production on Houdini and Legends of Valhalla, hence the correction about Wrath of Olympus versus Legends of Valhalla that we received. That is not actually true. American Pinball issued a clarifying statement. Their phrasing in their statement about retiring those titles was not accurate. It was more of they're not going to be on the line for a while, at least Houdini. Legends of Valhalla, once it hits its limited count, will be done. But so they aren't actually retired in the way we would think of them and had described them as being discontinued. Only Oktoberfest is formally retired at this stage. Okay? So kind of sad because I don't like being wrong, but I'm still a little sad.
But they were the ones who had to make the correction.
So that's why it's a quasi correction. So we have one major topic today. Hey, look, and full kudos, credit, and accolades to Spooky. They timed this for our show.
Yes, thank you so much.
They clearly went out and were like, when is Eclectic Gamers going to drop? Let's get all of this stuff out just before that happens.
Instead of like the Tuesday after.
So we thank you. You may be our number one pinball manufacturer at this point simply because of the respect you have shown to this podcast and its listeners. So for those that have not maybe been under a rock, maybe because it's so recent, you haven't actually heard it yet, and that's conceivable. But Spooky Pinball has revealed Evil Dead Pinball, a game we know they have wanted to do for a long time.
Yes.
I remember me and Pepperidge Farm, and probably Tony, remember when I think it was Ben Heck, who's involved in this project, was so upset that Evil Dead wasn't happening. And at the time, and this was years ago, my understanding was Bruce Campbell was too expensive. They couldn't justify bringing him in for call outs, and they couldn't make it work.
Right.
But years have passed, Spooky has grown, and times have changed. This game is designed by Bug Emery and Spooky Luke as a collaboration. This is actually their fourth Spooky Pinball collaboration. We've been seeing a lot of collaborations out of them recently. The art is by Christopher Franchi, which is why it looks very good.
Yeah.
The code, as I mentioned, Ben Heck, he is the one handling code. I'm assuming by code that also means rules. I should go ahead and note that I have links to a trailer that Straight Down the Middle did. I just linked the trailer. There's a whole featurette, but it's 30 plus minutes long, so I'm not linking that. And also an article over at Kineticist, which has a lot of these details. The music is by Matt Montgomery. They did get Bruce Campbell for callouts. They also got Laura Sloiter and Scott Eanes. I think it's Eanes. Apologies for any mispronunciations. And there are a lot of sculpts on this game, and they were done by Back Alley Creations. So that's the basic setup on that. The game is limited to 888 units. And actually, I also have this linked in the show notes. According to Nap Arcade, they've already sold 500 of them.
I'm surprised they're not all gone. They might actually be gone by now.
Well, maybe. I mean, it is the weekend, so they might not be processing them.
True.
But 888 is, again, this is a step back from the counts that we saw with like the Looney Tunes Texas Chainsaw, the whole count with the Scooby-Doo game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they've scaled the count back. There's only one trim level now. I don't know if they got a lot of feedback because there used to be like Bloodsuckers Edition, Classic Edition, LE or Collector. I don't remember the names for it all. They have one tier, and it's $10,000. That's how much the game is. Well, $9,999, but I round up to the So these are going to be rounded, but within like a buck. There are two add-ons. One is the old butter cabinet. If you want the butter cabinet look, which some people really like, that's an extra $1,500 that you would have to tack on. And then they have a topper that a lot of people are really praising. It's called the Cheryl topper, and that is another $1,400.
The topper does look good.
The topper does look good. Actually, I mean, we're going to give our thoughts, but Overall, my really too long didn't listen summary would be the whole thing pretty much looks good.
It does.
So here are the features. The optional topper, which was designed by horror makeup designer Gary Tunnicliffe. He has created a motorized Cheryl head that it's sort of like it's the cellar door opening. And so the head is motorized to move up and down, and it causes chains that are on the door to rattle when it does it. And it's very well sculpted.
It's good.
And the
it's
lighting.
Real good.
It's got good lighting too. So that's the optional topper. I'm not going to talk about the Buttercap because everyone who's familiar or cares about Buttercap knows what Buttercap's like.
I can't believe it's not butter.
Yes. So some of the features, and again, there's only one model line. So these features are all that topper's optional. Everything else is included. They're over on the left-hand side of the game is the evil ash hand, and it has a stepper that allows it to move back and forth. There is a rotating Linda head, the head that's in the vice grip in the movie. It's over on the right-hand side, and so it spins. There's Evil Scotty and Ed pop-up bash toys. Think Trolls from Medieval Madness. It's almost like they feel like they're in the same place.
Right.
So there is a lower play field. Think AC/DC style, but that's representing the fruit cellar, which is a key component in the movies. Over on the far right, the shooter lane, it's actually a double shooter lane. It's a double barrel shotgun. And so balls can load into each of the lanes, and they kind of, obviously there's a separator because they fire out slightly differently to represent the left and right side of the shotgun. The game has inline drop targets. It has a hidden orbit magnet. It has a shaker motor. It has a physical knocker. It does have a lift ramp. It has the cellar door, kind of like what the topper represents, but on the playfield, there's a cellar door that it sometimes is a bash target, and it also sometimes is the entrance to the lower playfield. Over in the kind of the upper right section is a cabin toy, which serves as a ball lock. The balls lock on the porch, representing the cabin where they are staying. And to be noted, when you hear all of this stuff, this game is a wide body, which Spooky has done wide bodies before. Looney Tunes was not a wide body, but Scooby-Doo was. So fairly recently, they did have a wide body in their repertoire. Tony, in our internal notes, I've included a number of the pictures. I would loosely, I don't want to go into a whole lot about the layout and such. The layout, I would describe broadly as safe and very, very fan-like in terms of a lot of the shots are towards the back. A lot of the wide body towards the bottom seems to be designed to accommodate the double lane for the shooter for the shotgun. So you'll notice that it slims down, I think, much more to a standard body, kind of towards at the midpoint of the play field, maybe a little less than the midpoint. And then after that, you see a lot of things fan out where you have your troll targets, and you've got your ramps and your ball lock and your cellar door. But I would describe it. I'm going to use the word safe layout. And by safe, I don't mean necessarily that the game is going to be a long player, though spooky games tend to be.
True.
And as a wide body, it may play a little bit slow in and of itself anyway. However, by safe, I mean the layout's not weird like Halloween. I don't think a lot of people are going to be put off by the look of the layout. But I have a lot of close-ups of some of the toys and stuff for our own internal purposes, just to make it a little easier for us. It I think I've described them relatively well. So let's have a discussion. What do you think about this?
I think it looks good. When I first saw it late last week, I was impressed. Mm-hmm. I think the art's beautiful. I think it looks like it could be fun. I really kind of like some of the little details. I like the little shotgun loading shots, mm-hmm. where you're just hitting the shells and loading them to load them into the thing. I think that's a cool little thing. As always, until I actually play it, I won't know, but I have to admit, I'm kind of excited for this one.
It looks great. Overall, this game screams theme immersion. I don't think we've seen a game that did this well at theme immersion since Labyrinth.
Probably not.
And in some ways, maybe this is even done better than Labyrinth. Again, they leaned really heavily into the sculpts. So there are a lot of them. Mm-hmm. Actually, one of the most disappointing things was, I think it was excellent that they got Bruce Campbell for the call-outs from the trailer. It didn't sound like he was coached well on how to enthusiastically do call-outs. They're really, really flat. But again, the way his character presents That may be the choice that they went ahead. But it was great that they got him.
Yes.
So they've got that. Clips from the movie. This does not have Army of Darkness. It does the first two Evil Deads.
Right.
Which I only watched part of the featurette, but I did not realize that those two movies have two different licensors. So they had to work with two licensors to do the. Yep.
I did not know that either.
It's just an interesting little tidbit. But yeah, the theme immersion is top notch, and that's what's exciting about it. Plus, in the case with Spooky, I like it better that when they don't do the really, really weird layouts. I feel kind of bad saying that because I like seeing Stern, like what Jack Danger's been doing with Stern. I do like seeing layouts that are not super duper safe, but with Spooky, whenever they've deviated from, relatively pedestrian layouts, it just doesn't play well.
Right.
So,
which has been a problem. And that's been an ongoing Spooky problem, that several of their recent games have had, that they've just not been that fun.
It's just, there, you mentioned the shotgun shells as another, a nice little touch. There was also the tape player.
The tape
where
player.
The apron card would be on the right hand side. Just nice little things like that. Of course, the Franchi art looks great. It's nice to see him have another project come out. This is an excellent theme for Spooky. Obviously, they lean as a horror based pinball company inherently. This one is right up that alley. You can tell that they really wanted this one for quite a while, and they finally got it. What are my biggest concerns would be, I, as a general rule, don't like wide bodies and how they play. I didn't like how Scooby-Doo played, so I'm curious if this is going to play super floaty. I didn't get the impression that it's a particularly fast game from the video that I've been able to see, but of course setup makes a big difference on that.
Right.
So the features and stuff, how fun is the lower playfield? How fun is the geometry? That's obviously, all these things are subjective. I'll have questions there. I think the biggest thing, and I've seen others mention this, so it's not like a really creative Dennis thing, but I think you'll understand where I'm coming from. This is a lot of moving mechs for a company that doesn't have the greatest build quality reputation, including on their modern games.
Right.
And so there's a lot that could break here. But have they, with a smaller count, are they doing better QC? Maybe. Well, we'll have to find out as they go along. But I think the way they've executed on this game was the right way to do it. I think this was smart. I think it made sense for them to choose a wide body, given everything they wanted to put in on it. It feels like the world of the movie, just looking at it. They got all the right call outs. They got all the right art. They going with all the sculpts and not flat plastics. I also think it was really smart of them to go down to one model.
I do too.
I get why and Stern with their 3 model thing, it makes sense for a huge producer like Stern. I think with Spooky, it was always confusing. Like, everyone's like getting the Bloodsucker edition, the classic, then the orders they were built. It was all it was too much. It was a little too a la carte. I think just saying, here it is. Do you want the topper? Do you want the butter cab? I think that works really, really well.
I do too, especially because of the changes we've seen recently due to the economy and everything else.
Yeah. The game comes with art blades installed inside, so it's not just the black sides and stuff. It's just, it looks really good. So,
it does.
Yeah, I'll look forward to playing this. Are you a fan of the Evil Dead movies?
Yeah. I've seen them once or twice. I've seen Army of Darkness a lot more.
Army of Darkness was my first one. It was my touchstone movie as a kid. That was the one I was shown first by my dad. And so I've seen Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 once, I think.
Yeah.
And I liked them. I thought Evil Dead 2 was sillier, if I remember correctly, and Evil Dead 1 was more straight-laced, but it was basically the same movie plots.
That was my basic thought.
So in that regard, I know they're iconic. I know they've got a huge fan base.
They're not movies that I've gone back and rewatched.
They're not my cult classics, but I know I recognize the title.
Yeah, I said because I'm not like Army of Darkness. I've watched Army of Darkness within the last couple of years, but for me, that's more like you said. That's more of the touchstone on this for me than. But Army of Darkness is very much different, where these are more of the classic kind of horror.
Yeah, I think with Army of Darkness, you'd almost, because it's not taking place in the cabin, Army of Darkness would warrant being its own game. If you were going for this level of theme immersion, it would have to, with the medieval castle and and the shopping center. And so it'd be just like, yeah, I get why they didn't do that.
Yes.
So anyway, good job, Spooky. This looks really, really impressive. And I'm very confident we will be able to experience this at Texas Pinball Festival, which incidentally, Tony and I have bought our tickets for Texas Pinball Festival. We do have the hotel room reserved. And so that should be a go. I'll put in my requests once I get my floating holidays back for work.
Yeah.
I don't get them until the start of the year.
I put my request in already. So, because we don't have
I already
floating
blocked on the
holidays.
calendar then.
So
that's because I'm sure this will be at TPF. I've already seen some of them have been on the line already. So
by March, there'll definitely be some out there. So that'll be good. I'm really looking forward to it.
Okay. We did have one email that I wanted to touch on before we go to the video game segment. And it is from Brian J., who wrote in, and I will read it as follows. Gentlemen, how do you think current pinball sales compare to the peak of the market we had 3 to 4 years ago? What percentage would each of you say we are at now? Personally, I would believe the number would be around 45% based on the smaller runs of games as a whole, but also the reduced numbers of LE, Jersey Jack and Stern, CE by Jersey Jack, and Spooky's Evil Dead at 888, which is just one edition. Another question I had was based on Stern appearing they are going to do remasters of older games. How many remasters do you think we will get a year going forward? Finally, do you think we would be more likely to see remasters of The Simpsons Pinball Party and Ghostbusters or completely new machines of those themes? Thanks, Brian. Well, thank you, Brian, for writing in. And Brian actually asked a lot of questions, like 3 questions here. So let's take it in chunks. Let's do it in order, though.
Okay.
So, Tony, where do you think pinball sales are compared to the peak of the market, which he kind of based out as 3 or 4 years ago? I would say it's probably more 2 to 3, but potato.
I don't have a problem with his percent. I think it's under half of what it was at that time, just because of all of the changes, not in the economy, and the very fact that we're out of the everybody stuck at home pandemic issues that drove sales so hard.
Yes, it's a little tricky, and this is also where the years get a little tricky, because here's something that I think a lot of people might not inherently think about, but during the pandemic, part of the struggle wasn't just the demand for pinball. It was hard for pinball to get the parts, so their production counts were low.
True.
Lower than they should have been. Like, they could not meet demand. And it wasn't just a, holy cow, Godzilla's a great game and everyone wants Godzilla. It was, holy cow, we use the same computer chip that the Ford F-150 uses, and Ford is the priority to the chip manufacturer for obvious reasons. So we can't build very many games. And that plagued because remember, in the pandemic, it wasn't just like the stay-at-home stuff. That stuff resolved really quickly. It was those supply chain issues that went along for about 8 to 10 months, I think, even after the quote-unquote pandemic.
That's a really good
ended.
point.
Yeah, so that's why I hesitate a little bit. There was huge demand in 2001 and 2002 in particular. 2001 primarily, but I'm saying 2021.
Okay.
No, 2001. 2001, there was no pinball.
I can tell you, there was
CERN
no
was just
demand
like,
in 2001 and
2001 was
2002.
like, here, buy South Parks. Yeah, thank you. Good catch. That would have been, I don't want the corrections on that. So 2021 was probably the peak year where we saw a lot of people get in because the pandemic hit in basically at the start of quarter 2 of 2020. And then, people at first thought it was going to be resolved pretty quickly. By 2021, that's when you saw a lot of the prices start to go up on things. A lot of collectibles started to really go up into 2022. And then, like in the world of wristwatches, by March of 2023 was like the price peak, and then things just fell off a cliff. And
right.
All of a sudden, prices started to get back to normal. Now, some of those supply chain things didn't really resolve until later that year. But anyway, I think that was the pacing. I think it was sort of the start for that. But pinball was a little bit different. But all right. I think his percentage is close. I would say it might be half of the demand that it was. Now, that's sales themselves. I'm going to go ahead and say half, because even though some of that stuff was slowed up, I mean, the LEs, the CEs, those limited counts, and we've seen these numbers, the Evil Dead being 888, the reduced only 500 LEs of the Metallica remastered, the reduced count on the X-Men LE. those are your whaliest whales to ever whale.
Mm-hmm.
So with those things not flying off the shelf, the Metallica one did, but X-Men did not fly off the shelf. And that's a popular game. It wasn't like John Wick, which you can still easily get a John Wick LE, I believe.
Right.
Easily. So given those sort of challenges, I think, about half of where it kind of was peak pandemic, but it gets complicated because of the production things. Just, that was my tablet for those that heard the thump. Don't worry about it. The conversations I've had with Zach Minnie, who is the distributor for Flipping Out Pinball, runs that distributorship. He had pointed out to me, like, there's an issue where people think you're making money hand over fist when I didn't have any games to sell. It was like, oh no, there was tons of demand, but I couldn't get people their Godzillas. I don't get paid until the Godzillas are shipped. So it was sort of one of those instances where it wasn't necessarily as robust as you might think. The demand was definitely there, but not the supply. So now we don't have a supply issue, but the demand is also greatly, greatly diminished. So, okay, that's the first question. So the second question was, how many remasters do you think Stern's going to do per year?
1.
I agree.
I think it'll take a slot of one of the flagship, because we know they'd already cut down on a big cornerstone launch. And I think they'll either use it to replace when they don't have that extra cornerstone, or to have a year where they have an extra release. But I don't see them doing more than one remaster a year. Honestly, I could see them doing a remaster like every other year even.
I agree with you that I think there will be a remaster every year. I do not believe it will take the spot of a cornerstone. I think we'll see 3 cornerstones a year, and the remaster will fall somewhere in there, probably in the fall, in place of the old model where they had 3 cornerstones and a vault.
Right.
That's what I think they will do. I do think we will see 1 per year, though, not every other year. And that's just because I don't think the lift is that. It's more of a lift than a vault, but given how big their teams are right now, I think the strategy is going to be, let's get the animation and code people to put in the extra effort on this stuff and reuse the layout, which isn't going to impact the designers. The irony is, though, if any team is pressured, it's the rules and code development, which we've seen as the number one gripe with X-Men, is how bare bones. I mean, it dropped really bare bones, and it got moved up in the production schedule. You may be right. They may use that to accommodate some of those shifts and stuff, but my guess is they want to stick with the 3 cornerstones a year because they've got them, they paid their designers to get them. But this will help smooth over the John Wicks of the world where they flop.
That's also true. And I wonder if it might not be easier to bring in extra coders, and such, and animation people than it is to bring in another designer to do a design.
Maybe. I personally think that Stern is very top heavy on designers right now. Like, they could get rid of some designers. I don't think they need this many, because what they've got Jack Danger, Keith Elwin, John Borg, and Brian Eddy. And on occasion, George Gomez has done a design, even though he's running the design teams and isn't really as a part of that rotation proper. But that made sense in that pandemic era demand. It doesn't really make sense now. And I think people are going to look and say which designers' games are not doing well. And I wonder about their long-term viability with the company.
Yeah, it's a valid question.
The third and final question Brian had for us was, do you think it's more likely that we'll see Simpsons Pinball Party and Ghostbusters get remastered, or see a new game designed from scratch with those themes?
Oh, remastered. We're not going to see new games with those themes.
Yeah.
Possibly The Simpsons, but even then I doubt it. Definitely not Ghostbusters.
I was actually going to, I agree with you. Remasters. And of those, Ghostbusters is a likely remaster. I think Simpsons Pinball Party is an unlikely remaster.
I agree.
I really just don't. As much fun as we had last episode coming up with things that they might do from the past, I really don't see them going back further than Sam. And Ghostbusters, though, would warrant a remaster, given, while it is Spike, it's Spike 1 and it had a DMD, and they could LCD it. I actually think if they were to do them from scratch, Ghostbusters would be more likely, because I haven't heard a good thing about Simpsons in years, other than I know the show is still going on. it's conceivable a new Ghostbusters movie might find success and warrant it. I think it's really unlikely, though.
I mean, have you even seen any of the recent ones?
No, I saw the one with the 4 women as Ghostbusters, and I liked it until the 3rd act, but I haven't seen the newest ones.
Yeah, I haven't seen the 2 newest ones either with the kids.
With Ant-Man, right? Ant-Man going around trying to shrink ghosts or something. I don't know. I didn't see it, so I don't know. I don't understand plot. But I just don't. I don't think I think Ghostbusters is actually really likely to get a remaster. Simpsons Pinball Party, I don't think you'll ever see it again. If they were going to remaster a White Star game, it would be Lord of the Rings.
Right.
And even then, the movie's so old now. They would be unlikely. It's the same excuses as to why they won't remaster Tron. It's that movie's old. It didn't do well. Even the second Tron movie's old now.
So are they working on a new Tron?
They're purportedly, yes, but both Tron movies flopped, and it is what it is. People only want that Tron game because they like Daft Punk, and they broke up. So leave them alone. Leave them alone.
They just need to make a Daft Punk machine. That's what they need to do.
And in fact, we have someone who was trying to homebrew one here in Kansas City. I don't know if he finished or not, though. But I know what we are finished with, and that's the pinball segment. So let's go into video games.
Video games! Okay. It's not in the notes. I'm going off script. They are holding, for the next 2 weeks, it started a day or 2 ago, Star Citizen is open and free for anybody who wants to play without buying in for multi-hundreds of dollars worth of ships. They're doing an open free play test thing. So for those who are interested in trying out the Star Citizen, there you go. I don't know. I am bought into the Star Citizen.
You are.
And I've not played it.
What?
So I mean,
it's the greatest space game ever.
That's what some.
I wonder if they'll
claim.
make a pinball machine of Star Citizen.
I mean, they've only made $200 million or some insane number like that to make the game that's still in pre-alpha. So
if somehow Star Citizen money ran out, is it too big to fail? Would the government bail it out?
They're based in the UK, so probably not.
Austerity measures, are they still going on?
I think so.
Okay.
Now, to be fair, it does sound like we're getting real close to Squadron 42, which is what was originally supposed to be the whole thing, was the single-player Squadron 42 thing. Sounds like supposedly in the next couple of years, like they've been saying for the last several years. Path of Exile 2, they released their opening video sequence. That game's coming out next month, I believe, in December. That's Path of Exile is a very popular game that took a lot of Diablo players in the giant gaps after the failure of Diablo 3 and before Diablo 4 came up, where a lot of people went and started playing it. It's super popular. I've played it some. It's enjoyable, but it's one of those things that you could lose a lot of time into. And when I played it, it was shortly after I came out of an MMO. So I was like,
And you don't play any games that just suck up a bunch of time.
No, I do. I totally do. But I never really went deep into it because when I tried it, I'd just come out of playing an MMO and I'm like, ooh, I just quit a game because I spent too much time playing one game. So
yeah, I understand that.
Now, for an interesting thing, Steam has updated their policy on season passes.
Oh, okay. I didn't know there was a policy on season passes.
I don't know that they really had much of one before this. But their new update has to do with some blowback that they've had over the course of the last year. So they've put together new guidelines that developers must follow. They must provide a complete list of the DLC that is part of the season pass with a description of the DLC and the expected release dates of the DLC. Now, the DLC can be pushed and those release dates can be changed, but for the season pass, you have to have a list of the DLC, what's expected of them, and an expected release date. To put out the season pass, one of the DLCs has to be out. The only time you can't do that or you don't have to do that, is that if the season pass is included in like the pre-purchase of like a deluxe edition. But for somebody to buy the season pass separately, one of the DLCs has to be out before you can offer the DLC or the season pass for sale.
Right, I get it.
So, also, if any DLCs included in a season pass is canceled, the customers will be offered a refund for the value of the unreleased DLC. That's where a lot of the troubles have come up, because games would release and have season passes available for purchase on launch day.
Right.
With no actually announced DLC, not really knowing when or what you were getting with that season pass. And then in several cases, several companies have canceled the DLCs and the season passes, and the season passes have just ended with maybe one DLC dropped, and people were just like, "Oh, well, I got hosed over."
It's like there was no pass; it was one DLC pack,
right? So that is part of what all this is, and Steam did put out this statement. It's like, quote, by offering a season pass, you are promising future content. In the process of launching a season pass, you will be asked to commit to a launch timing for each content release in the season pass. That launch timing is a commitment to both customers and Steam. If you aren't ready to clearly communicate about the content included in each DLC and when each DLC will be ready for launch, you shouldn't offer a season pass on Steam.
I agree with this change.
Yeah, I've got no problem with this change. I thought it was a really good customer forward kind of change. So I applaud them.
Yay.
While we're talking about Steam, on the 15th of November was the 20th anniversary of Half-Life 2.
Oh, I think I read a little bit about it.
Yeah, so we just missed it. It was just a few days ago. But they put out a new edition of Half-Life 2 with all sorts of all new documentary and creators' commentary or director's commentary and all sorts of stuff with it. That also led to Half-Life 2 having its highest concurrent player base ever.
Oh.
With people playing it. So.
Hex. I think that was a sound effect for the healing in it. Don't remember. It's been so long.
Pretty close. Yeah.
I played its DLC.
I've played everything Half-Life 2 related, but not recently because it's been 20 years.
It's been a long time. A long time.
20 years. They put out a new trailer for Minecraft. It didn't help.
The movie or?
The movie.
Okay. Because I didn't see it. So
yeah, they put out a new Minecraft trailer for the movie. I don't know that it helped. It comes out on my birthday.
Oh. Have your kids mentioned it?
Not yet. Not yet.
Papa?
They saw the first trailer and they were not necessarily really happy with it.
Maybe they'll fix it like how Sonic got fixed. Meow.
Maybe. I mean, this one does show them like punching a tree to get wood. And throwing stuff. And yeah, it's, I don't know. I don't think it helped any.
Okay.
I think the only thing in the entire trailer that I laughed at was at the very, very beginning of the trailer. It was this little kid in an outfit with a pickaxe in his shoulder. And you just hear Jack Black saying, as a young child, I yearned for the mines.
Oh my gosh. That's so silly.
So that was it. That was
mines. You're so cool. I'll punch this tree for a pile of wood.
Baldur's Gate 3.
That game's been out forever.
Yeah, it came out last year. And
forever.
It has forever. It's been a year.
I've seen it speed run twice, so it feels like forever.
Yeah. That's because
all I know is bear drop. Bear drop. I'm going to do a bear drop when I play it. I'm going to drop it there.
You should play it. But now they have mod support.
Oh. So Preston won't ask me about the next settlement? That's a deep cut, people.
Deep cut. But since the release of the mod support, they have more concurrent average daily users than they did last year.
Wow.
There's more people playing now than ever before. There has been more than 50 million mod downloads since mod support launched. Of which, because Laren really likes to put out all the funny stats because we've talked about funny stats in the past. 10,000 of those downloads are a mod that all it does is change the undead guiding character that kind of does some guidance to you, Wither's name, to Bone Daddy.
Okay.
It's probably the greatest mod ever.
Well, that's why it has 10,000 downloads.
Right. So they have definitely been working out very well for them. Baldur's Gate 3 is definitely, in my mind, the big winner out of the games from last year, especially if they're still going this strong. And in an interesting bit of news that's probably not a huge surprise, Phil Spencer, in an interview, put out that he doesn't think that there's a red line on game releases on Nintendo or PlayStation. He doesn't think there is a single franchise or a single game on Xbox that can't come to PlayStation or Nintendo. He's fine with it. As Xbox continues its slew towards just being a software developer.
Yes, it's confusing a lot of people. This is consistent with where he's been at on a lot of things, and I get it, because it's kind of hey, we as a company will make money wherever our games are played, so why would we limit that?
Correct.
But it's not asking the question of, well, why buy the hardware then, sort of thing. And where it's been, though, is that what they might end up doing, because I've seen them do it on a few other things, is the idea of more of it being timed limited releases where it'll be out on Xbox first. But they don't do the same delays, at least what we've been seeing lately, as Sony has. Like Sony, sometimes there'll be a deal and it'll be a year. And Microsoft has lately been with some stuff being like, after a quarter of a year. Sure.
I don't think it's even going to be a quarter of a year for Indiana Jones.
Probably
Indiana
not.
Jones is, I think it's only going to be like 1 or 2 months.
So, yeah, it's I don't know on the on strategy. I mean, ultimately, it probably is right that it makes Microsoft money this way, especially, but it's an interesting, I wonder if the view changes with the next gen or not, because again, they're not going to win this generation, just like they've never really won a generation.
Not really.
So I think the thought is, well, at this point, you're not going to convince a lot of people that don't already own an Xbox Series X to buy one. So let's go ahead and get what we can financially, and then when the next hardware cycle rolls around, maybe we get more strict on the new gen. I mean, I don't know if that's the plan or not.
I don't know.
Because
and
everything hinges on Game
question.
Pass. And I think they ultimately would love to have Game Pass on other systems. I think that's what they did with PC.
And I think you're right on that. I mean, they are definitely at a point where they're not cannibalizing hardware sales by putting games out on other. There's no, their hardware sales are what they are going to be. And they're not going to get any better.
I wonder when they're going to release their alarm clock.
You're Master Chief.
Cortana
would tell you to wake up. Everybody needs a little blue waifu.
And then there's a mod, because we'll be able to get mods for it, and we'll install the mod where it makes it all from the Halo TV show instead. Oh, what fun.
How much joy. Speaking of TV shows, as of yesterday, the final 3 episodes of season 2 of Arcane dropped. I've not watched the final 3 episodes.
I haven't seen
I only watched the first 6. I'm not a League of Legends person. I don't know anything about League of Legends. I don't like the MOBA play style, so I've never played into it. But I watched the first season of Arcane because a bunch of people said, you know what, it's just a really good show. And they're right. That show is beautiful with amazing sound and music. And the story is super interesting. So I watched the second season that was out, which was the first 6 episodes. And it's, again, beautiful. The art's amazing. The sound is amazing. The music's amazing. Everything about it is amazing. The last 3 are out. I just haven't had a chance to watch them yet. So I highly recommend, even if you're not a League of Legends person, Arcane is good if you have the Netflix.
And okay, well, that's a good point. So I'll go ahead and mention I've only seen, because I think there's only one out. I saw the first episode in honor of the old RTS game, Dune Prophecy. So if you want beautiful costuming, Dune Prophecy's got it in galore. If you want to see Benny Jesuits going around Jesuiting everything, there you go. Dune Prophecy.
Because that's on Max, isn't it?
I think
HBO
so.
Max?
Yeah. So I was able to see the first episode, and it was like, okay, I don't know where this is going. Prophecy is a prequel. Like this is like less than 200 years after the Butlerian Jihad.
Oh, so it's
very
it's
early.
Like a really, really
the founding of the order.
Wow. Okay, that could be really cool. I don't know that that's ever been covered in any of the Dune books, but I also gave up on the.
Yes, Kevin J. Anderson, we've not forgiven you.
Yeah, I gave up on those books. On
the thinking machine was mad at this guy. The thinking machine. Oh, quit saying the thinking machine. Oh my, I get it. That's what Frank called them, but you don't have to spell it out every time. They had names.
I still remember. I don't remember where we were going. But I remember at one point we did listen to one of the audiobooks that had been narrated by Tim Curry.
Those were the prequels.
Those were the
that
prequels.
are about Leto,
right?
Leto Atreides, the Duke, as a young man, and those were good.
Yeah,
if only for Finrig.
Right. Yes, it was so good. Well, I mean, it's Tim Curry was doing.
Yes, so it actually sounded fun, not like how I was obnoxious. But
yeah,
no, those were okay because those were kind of let's do it like Dune, hero's journey. Know, kind of actiony sort of things. And you knew most of the characters because they were like, you had the emperor who was the emperor in Dune and the Baron. And
it's just when they were younger.
Yeah, they were younger.
Because I was.
But the stuff for the Butlerian Jihad going back and like what Holtzen and Jives and the resistance to the machines and the thinking machines, and they're all named after Greek gods, and it was just like. It was tedious. Oh, tedious. Maybe I should just listen to the abridged versions. They were long, unabridged. Anyway, I don't recommend those. I don't know enough yet on Dune Prophecy long term, but just FYI, it came out. So because I didn't realize it'd come out. So
I'd heard it was coming, but my Max subscription is one of the subscriptions. That I you know how you drop subscriptions for a while and let them build up stuff so you can binge it.
Yeah.
HBO Max is one of my things that. Because basically what it amounts to is I keep the permanent subscriptions to the things that my kids watch all the time, and everything else I'll drop it and I might grab it for a month out of the year and spend that month binge watching.
It may be a good one to wait for it to finish and then binge it.
Because the last time I had the Max and I binged stuff, there was good stuff there. Cause that's
same for House of the Dragon.
Yeah.
It was okay.
Yeah, because last time I did, I binged Chernobyl.
I need to see Chernobyl.
It's so good.
I want to see it. Okay.
It's really
I'll have to add that. I didn't remember where it was on, that it was on HBO.
Yeah.
Max. Okay.
So.
Cool. I think we're done.
We are.
All right. If you want to reach out to us, email us, eclecticgamerspodcast@gmail.com. You can also go to facebook.com/eclecticgamerspodcast, but that's not the best place to do the outreach. If you want to support the show through patreon.com/eclectic_gamers, we got 3 different tiers. The lowest is $1 a month. Those are my main things.
We're on Twitch and Instagram as eclectic_gamers.
And we'll be back in a couple weeks. That'll be after your trip.
That'll be like immediately after.
Maybe after the trip. Tony might be too tired. We might have to truncate.
No. I actually. So I leave on the 4th, and we come back on the 5th. I've never been to Florida. So I've obviously never been to Orlando, but in this trip, I'm going to Orlando, and I did the math, and I will be in Orlando for exactly 29 hours, of which the vast majority is going to be doing directly work-related stuff.
Yeah.
So it's not much. So I get to kind of see what Florida's like in December, I guess.
Yeah.
The interesting thing on it is I find it funny that I'm in Orlando and we got hotels at Universal Studios Endless Summer is where we're hoteling at, because it wasn't very expensive. It's cheaper than our TPF hotel by like a lot.
Yeah, Texas, you need to sort out those hotels. Holy cow, they have gone up a lot.
Yeah, that was shocking. And then also I went ahead and took the day after off because our flight's not scheduled to land till 11 p.m.
Yeah.
I'm like, the flight lands. I mean, technically, if everything's on time, we land at 11:15, but it means it's going to be after 11 by the time I get the car.
Yeah.
And then it's an hour drive from the airport home. And I'm just like, I'm not going to work the next day. So I just scheduled a vacation day for the 6th because it's just like, I'm going to be wiped out. So
we will see. But until the next episode, my name is Dennis.
I am Tony.
Goodbye.